Air Chief Marshal Hugh Dowding has entered the room quietly. He stands in the doorway, a spectral figure in his uniform. At 58, Dowding commands RAF Fighter Command. He is the architect of the air defense system that is currently saving Britain. He bears personal responsibility for every pilot's death. His face is carved from stone, his eyes haunted by the casualty lists he reads every morning. He is known as Stuffy Dowding, a man of few words and immense resolve. He cares nothing for politics. He cares only for survival. "Sir," Miles manages to stammer. "Show me how they work," Dowding says, walking to the front of the room. The crowd of experts parts like the Red Sea. "Not here," Dowding continues, looking at the fabric strip. "Not in a conference room. In the air." "Air Chief Marshal," Tizard protests, stepping forward. "This device has not been properly evaluated. It is irregular. It is scientifically unproven." "Neither was radar when I approved its installation," Dowding cuts him off. "Neither was the Spitfire's 8-gun armament. Neither were a dozen other innovations that everyone said were impossible until we made them work." He turns to Miles. He looks him in the eye, measuring him. "Mr. Miles, you will demonstrate your strips tomorrow at RAF Northolt. I will observe personally. If they work as you claim, I will authorize immediate field testing with operational squadrons. If they don't work, you will remove them and never waste my time again." "Understood. Yes, sir." "Gentlemen," Dowding addresses the stunned room, "we are losing this battle. Not because our pilots lack courage or skill, but because they are fighting blind. If fabric strips can change that, I don't care if they look ridiculous. I don't care if they violate aerodynamic principles. I care whether they save lives. Meeting adjourned." Miles packs his bag. His hands are trembling, but this time it is not from fear. It is from adrenaline. He has one chance, and he knows exactly who he needs to fly the plane. He needs the hardest, most cynical, most skilled pilot in the Royal Air Force. He needs a man who doesn't believe in miracles. Air Chief Marshal Hugh Dowding has entered the room quietly. He stands in the doorway, a spectral figure in his uniform. At 58, Dowding commands RAF Fighter Command. He is the architect of the air defense system that is currently saving Britain. He bears personal responsibility for every pilot's death. His face is carved from stone, his eyes haunted by the casualty lists he reads every morning. He is known as Stuffy Dowding, a man of few words and immense resolve. He cares nothing for politics. He cares only for survival. "Sir," Miles manages to stammer. "Show me how they work," Dowding says, walking to the front of the room. The crowd of experts parts like the Red Sea. "Not here," Dowding continues, looking at the fabric strip. "Not in a conference room. In the air." "Air Chief Marshal," Tizard protests, stepping forward. "This device has not been properly evaluated. It is irregular. It is scientifically unproven." "Neither was radar when I approved its installation," Dowding cuts him off. "Neither was the Spitfire's 8-gun armament. Neither were a dozen other innovations that everyone said were impossible until we made them work." He turns to Miles. He looks him in the eye, measuring him. "Mr. Miles, you will demonstrate your strips tomorrow at RAF Northolt. I will observe personally. If they work as you claim, I will authorize immediate field testing with operational squadrons. If they don't work, you will remove them and never waste my time again." "Understood. Yes, sir." "Gentlemen," Dowding addresses the stunned room, "we are losing this battle. Not because our pilots lack courage or skill, but because they are fighting blind. If fabric strips can change that, I don't care if they look ridiculous. I don't care if they violate aerodynamic principles. I care whether they save lives. Meeting adjourned." Miles packs his bag. His hands are trembling, but this time it is not from fear. It is from adrenaline. He has one chance, and he knows exactly who he needs to fly the plane. He needs the hardest, most cynical, most skilled pilot in the Royal Air Force. He needs a man who doesn't believe in miracles.
Bader takes off,
climbing aggressively to 15,000 feet. He begins flying a standard combat air patrol pattern, long, lazy figure eights. Below, Dowding watches through heavy naval binoculars. He sees the two chase aircraft separate. They are stalking Bader like wolves. One drops low, using the ground clutter to hide. The other climbs into the sun. In the cockpit of the modified Hurricane, Bader scans the sky. He checks his instruments. He glances in the rearview mirror. Useless, as always. He twists his neck, straining against the harness. Nothing. The sky looks empty, but in his peripheral vision, the fabric strips are there. They are calm, fluttering gently in the smooth, laminar airflow of the wing. Then, suddenly, the left strip changes. It doesn't just flutter, it ripples. A distinctive, harmonic wave pattern travels down the length of the cotton, like a snake moving through grass. It is the visual signature of a wake. Bader glances left and back. He sees nothing. The sun glare is blinding. But the strip doesn't lie. Bader trusts the fabric. He slams the stick to the left, kicking the rudder. The Hurricane rolls instantly, pulling 4 Gs. As he turns, a chase Hurricane flashes through the empty space he just vacated. If this were real combat, Bader would have just dodged a lethal burst of cannon fire. "Contact," Bader radios, his voice crackling with genuine surprise. "Left quarter, 400 yards. The game continues. The second attacker tries a different angle, coming from high and right. The right strip ripples violently. Bader breaks right, pulling up into a loop, catching his pursuer as he passes. "Contact, right quarter." Then, both strips flutter simultaneously, a chaotic, frantic dance of cotton. "Directly astern," Bader calls. He executes a barrel roll, bringing him nose to nose with the third attack run. On the ground, Dowding lowers his binoculars. A rare, faint smile touches his lips. Bader lands and switches aircraft. He climbs into the standard Hurricane. The difference is immediate and terrifying. Bader twists in his seat. He cranes his neck until the muscles spasm. He sweats. He feels the vulnerability like a physical weight. He is blind. He catches one attacker by pure chance, a glint of sun on a canopy. He sees the other only when it breaks off, having theoretically killed him 3 times over. "2 contacts," Bader radios, sounding breathless and angry. "But I had to work bloody hard for them. I would have been dead twice." After landing, Bader kills the engine. He slides the canopy back and climbs out onto the wing. He ignores the salutes of the ground crew. He ignores the other officers. He walks straight to Frederick Miles. Bader looks at the engineer. He looks at the fabric strips. "How soon can you put these on every Hurricane in fighter command?" Bader asks. "Immediately," Miles says. Bader turns to Dowding. "Sir, I want these on my squadron's aircraft by tomorrow morning. I don't care what they look like. They work. They give you eyes in the back of your head." Dowding nods. He turns to his aide. "Issue the order. Immediate production. Override the Air Ministry's objections. If Tizard complains, tell him to call me." The formal testing is rushed through in record time. Over the next 10 days, 12 operational pilots fly 57 simulated combat missions. The data is overwhelming. It destroys the arguments of the skeptics. Without strips, pilots detect pursuing aircraft 31% of the time before simulated firing range. Average detection distance, 380 yards. With strips, pilots detect pursuing aircraft 89% of the time. Average detection distance, 520 yards. That extra 140 yards, less than 2 seconds at closing speed, is the difference between taking evasive action and taking a funeral. On September 25, 1940, Dowding authorizes immediate production. Miles Aircraft Limited receives a contract to manufacture 10,000 sets. Installation begins with frontline squadrons within hours. October 4, 1940, 2:15 p.m., 20,000 feet above the burning docklands of London. Pilot Officer Eric Locke is flying his first combat mission since his Hurricane received Miles's strips. Locke is 20 years old, He has 17 hours of combat time. He is exactly the kind of pilot the RAF is losing too quickly. Talented, brave, but inexperienced. His squadron, number 41 Squadron RAF, is vectored to intercept a formation of Heinkel bombers escorted by Bf-10-9s. The bombers are easy to spot, 12 HE-11-9s in tight formation, looking like slow-moving whales. Locke positions himself for a beam attack, focusing on the lead bomber. His world narrows down to the gun sight. He is hunting. He doesn't see the Bf-109 that drops from the sun at 6 o'clock high. The German pilot, a veteran of the Spanish Civil War, has a perfect firing solution. He is lining up the shot. He is 2 seconds away from pulling the trigger. But the fabric strips see it. The German fighter's wake hits the laminar flow over Locke's wing. Locke catches the motion in his peripheral vision. Both strips are rippling violently, a frantic waving that screams, "Danger!" He doesn't think. He doesn't look back to confirm. He trusts the 11 shilling invention. He brakes hard right, pulling back on the stick so hard that gray edges creep into his vision. The Hurricane groans under the stress. Tracer rounds tear through the space his cockpit occupied 1 second earlier. The German pilot, confused by the sudden maneuver, overshoots. Locke reverses his turn, climbing hard, using the energy of his dive. He finds himself nose to nose with the Bf-109 that just missed him. Both pilots fire. The Germans' rounds go wide. Locke's don't. The 109's canopy shatters. The aircraft rolls inverted and falls away, trailing thick black smoke toward the Thames estuary. Locke doesn't have time to celebrate. The strips are rippling again. Another 109 closing from the left quarter. He breaks left. He sees the enemy fighter. He maneuvers. The dogfight lasts 90 seconds. When it ends, Locke has his second kill of the day. His Hurricane has 3 bullet holes in the tail section. Not one in the cockpit. Not one in the fuel tanks. "I saw him coming," Locke reports during the debriefing, his hands still shaking from the adrenaline as he lights a cigarette. "Not with my eyes, with those bloody strips. They gave me 2 seconds warning. That's all I needed." The combat reports flood in over the following weeks. Squadron after squadron reports the same pattern. Pilots are surviving encounters they would have died in before. The statistics tell the story of the turning tide. September 1940, before strips. Hurricane loss rate to fighter attack is 73 aircraft per 1,000 sorties. November 1940, after strips. Hurricane loss rate to fighter attack is 44 aircraft per 1,000 sorties. That is a 40% reduction in losses. In human terms, that is 40% fewer telegrams to mothers, wives, and children. 40% more pilots surviving to fight tomorrow. 40% more experienced veterans to train the next generation. The Germans notice. Luftwaffe intelligence reports describe mysterious fabric devices on RAF fighters. Oberleutnant Franz von Vera, the famous "one that got away," mentions them during interrogation after being shot down in September. "The Hurricanes began evading our attacks before we opened fire," von Vera says, frustrated. "We thought they had installed rear-facing radar, some new British technology. Then I saw one on the ground after I was captured. Fabric strips, like children's toys. But they worked. Our kill ratios dropped significantly in October. The Hurricane pilots were no longer blind." By December 1940, Miles's strips, officially designated Airflow Warning Devices, Type M, are standard equipment on every operational Hurricane. The modification spreads to other aircraft types. Spitfires received them in January 1941. American P-51 Mustangs fighting in Europe will use modified versions starting in 1943.
Miles Aircraft Factory, Surrey, May 8, 1945. Victory in Europe Day. Frederick Miles stands in his workshop. Outside, the world is celebrating. Church bells are ringing across England, a joyous cacophony that hasn't been heard in 6 years. Bonfires are being lit. The war in Europe is over. Britain has survived. Someone has thrust a glass of champagne into Miles's hand, but he stands a little apart from the celebrating workers. He looks tired. A delegation arrives at the factory gates. 3 RAF officers, now wearing peacetime uniforms, and a young man in civilian clothes. The young man steps forward, extending his hand. "Mr. Miles," the young man says, "I'm James Nicholson. We met once in 1940. You were asking about visibility." Miles remembers. The canteen, the tea, the conversation that sparked everything. "I wanted to thank you," Nicholson continues, his voice thick with emotion. "I flew with your strips for 4 years. They saved my life twice that I know of, probably more times I'll never know. Because of you, I came home. Because of you, I got married last year. Because of you, I'll have children who will never know how close they came to not existing." Miles doesn't know what to say. He has never been comfortable with gratitude. He looks at his hands, hands that shape wood and fabric. The senior officer, now a group captain, produces a document. "The Air Ministry wishes to recognize your contribution to the war effort, Mr. Miles. We are recommending you for the Order of the British Empire, OBE. Additionally, there is the matter of compensation. Your innovations saved the Crown millions of pounds in aircraft replacement costs, not to mention the incalculable value of lives preserved. We are prepared to offer—" "No," Miles interrupts quietly. The officers stop, stunned. "I'm sorry," Miles says. "I don't want recognition. I don't want compensation. I did what needed doing. That's all." "But, Mr. Miles, you saved hundreds of lives. You must accept something." "I made fabric strips," Miles says firmly. "Pilots saved lives. They are the ones who flew into combat every day. They are the ones who burned. They are the ones who deserve recognition." The officers exchange glances. "At least accept the OBE." "I appreciate the offer, truly, but no. Give those honors to the pilots. Give them to the ground crews who kept the aircraft flying. I'm just an engineer who got lucky." Miles never accepts official recognition. He refuses interviews. He declines to write his memoirs. He asks that his name be removed from official histories of the Battle of Britain. When aviation historians track him down in the 1960s, he tells them the same thing. "The strips worked because pilots trusted their instincts. I just gave them a tool. The courage was theirs, not mine." The fabric strips remain in service through the end of the war. Total production, 23,470 sets. They were installed on 14 different aircraft types across 5 air forces: RAF, RCAF, RAAF, RNZAF, and the U.S. Army Air Forces. Post-war analysis by the RAF's Operational Research Section estimates that 820 pilots survived encounters they statistically should not have, with the strips as a contributing factor. The technology seems primitive now, almost laughable in an age of digital warfare. Modern fighters have radar warning receivers, missile approach warning systems, and 360-degree sensor fusion. But the principle Miles discovered, using airflow disturbance to detect threats, remains valid. Modern UAVs use pressure-sensitive arrays to detect nearby aircraft through wake turbulence. The physics hasn't changed, only the implementation. Frederick George Miles dies in 1976 at the age of 70. He spent his post-war years designing light aircraft and teaching young engineers. His obituary in the Times mentions his wartime work in a single sentence. No one from the Air Ministry attends his funeral. But in 2003, a group of Battle of Britain veterans, men now in their 80s, walking with canes and memories, commission a memorial plaque at Brooklands. It reads simply, "Frederick George Miles, 1906 to 1976, engineer." His fabric strips gave us seconds. Those seconds gave us our lives. The lesson isn't about technology. It's about humility, persistence, and the courage to trust simple solutions when experts insist only complexity will work. Miles didn't have the credentials, the authority, or the resources of the establishment. He had a workshop, some fabric, and the willingness to try something ridiculous. Sometimes, ridiculous is exactly what is needed. Sometimes, the difference between life and death is 11 shillings worth of fabric and the courage to ignore everyone who says it won't work. Sometimes, the greatest innovations come not from laboratories and research committees, but from someone who simply refuses to accept that young men should die blind.